The battlefield was silent now. Not the peaceful kind of silence, but the heavy, uncomfortable kind that comes after chaos. Smoke still rose from the blackened ground. Broken metal and shattered walls lay scattered everywhere. The air smelled of burnt earth and melted steel. The sun was low in the sky, a dull orange ball hiding behind dirty clouds. Commander Harris stood at the center of what had once been a military outpost. His boots were covered in dust. His uniform was torn at the shoulder, a thin line of dried blood across his arm. He scanned the ruins slowly, one side to the other. Every movement seemed heavy, as if his body wanted to collapse, but his mind refused to stop. All around him, human soldiers moved like ghosts. Some dragged the wounded to a makeshift shelter. Some carried stretchers, their steps slow but steady. Others picked up the bodies of the dead and laid them side by side, covering their faces with pieces of cloth. No one spoke loudly. Even those giving orders did so in low voices, as if the sound might wake something dangerous. In the distance, a small group of engineers worked to restart a broken comms tower. Sparks flashed now and then. They needed to call for backup, but the battle had destroyed most of their systems. It was only a matter of time before someone, or something, returned to finish the job. Above the humans, high on a ridge of jagged black rocks, shadows moved, but they moved too carefully to be noticed. 6 figures stood there, tall and still, almost blending into the stone. If anyone had looked closely, they might have seen the strange shimmer around their shapes. A distortion in the air like heat waves on hot sand. These were not humans. The aliens stood in silence, watching. Their eyes glowed faintly. Not with light, but with something alive, something intelligent. They saw everything. The soldiers helping each other, the wounded refusing to give up, the careful way humans treated their dead. One alien raised a strange device to its face. The device hummed softly, recording every movement below. Another whispered in a clicking language, the words sharp and quick. "They survive," the alien said. "They should not have survived." A second alien replied, its voice lower, almost cautious. "Our report said they would turn on each other after such loss." But that was not what they were seeing. Below, 2 soldiers worked together to lift a heavy piece of collapsed wall. Beneath it, a man lay with a broken leg. Blood soaking his pants. One soldier pulled him out, while the other covered him with a blanket and gave him water. The aliens watched in silence. Their orders had been simple: observe the humans after the enemy strike, record their reactions, confirm their weakness. But weakness was not what they were finding. Commander Harris knelt beside a wounded private. The young man's eyes were half closed, his face pale. Harris gave him a quick smile, a hand on his shoulder. "You'll be fine, son. Just hang in there," he said. His voice was steady, but his eyes carried the weight of too many lost. Far from the commander, a medic named Ruiz was crawling through the rubble. She had been searching for survivors for hours, ignoring her own cuts and bruises. Her flashlight beam flickered as she pushed aside stones and twisted metal. Then she heard it, a faint trembling sound, a child's cry. She froze. There were no civilians supposed to be here. Slowly, carefully, she followed the sound until she found a small pocket of space under what had been a storage hut. Inside was a boy, no older than 8, his face streaked with dirt and tears. "It's okay," Ruiz whispered, reaching in. "I'm here to help you." The boy shook his head, clutching something close to his chest. His voice was shaking. Don't let the monsters get me." Ruiz looked around. "There are no monsters here," she said softly. But above them, on the ridge, the aliens froze. Somehow the child's eyes seemed to focus right on the spot where they stood, though it was impossible for a human to see them through their cloaking field. One alien tilted its head. "This one can sense us." The others remained silent. Ruiz pulled the boy out gently and carried him toward the medics. As they disappeared into the camp, the aliens' attention shifted back to Commander Harris. "Look at them," one alien murmured. "No leader tells them to care for each other. They just do." Another answered, "It is not strategy. It is instinct." A gust of wind blew across the ridge. It carried the smell of smoke and the faint metallic taste of blood. Somewhere far away, thunder rumbled. Or maybe it wasn't thunder. The aliens' sensors picked up a faint vibration from the north. Something big was moving. Down below, an engineer shouted, "Commander, we have partial power!" The comms tower buzzed weakly, its lights flickering. Harris turned toward it, a spark of hope in his tired eyes. "Get me a signal. I don't care if it's only for 5 seconds." While the humans worked, one alien scout zoomed its recording device on a small object lying half-buried near the command tent. Its shape was twisted, edges melted, but the alien recognized it instantly. It was a fragment of their own technology, left behind in the chaos of the earlier battle. The scout hissed. "They have our tech." The leader of the alien group narrowed its glowing eyes. "We must retrieve it before they learn what it is." Down below, a soldier bent down, picked up the fragment, and turned it over in his hands. "Looks like nothing I've seen before," he said to another. They shrugged and placed it with other collected debris. The aliens tensed, but made no move yet. The sun dipped lower, shadows stretching across the battlefield. A strange sound began to echo, soft at first like a distant drum. It grew louder, steadier, a rhythm that did not belong to the wind or the damaged machines. Harris paused mid-step. His eyes narrowed. "Anyone hear that?" Some soldiers looked up, confused. Others didn't notice at all, too busy tending to the wounded. The sound continued. Click, 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 click. On the ridge, the aliens stiffened. "They're coming back," one said. The leader did not answer. It only stared down at the humans, its mind working. For a moment, it almost stepped forward, almost revealed itself. But instead, it turned away, vanishing into the rocks, leaving the clicking sound to grow louder in the thick, smoky air. Commander Harris scanned the horizon but saw nothing. He didn't know it yet. None of them did. But the battle was not over. And somewhere out there, unseen eyes were still watching. High above the battlefield, the ridge was quiet except for the soft hum of alien devices. The 6 watchers stood almost perfectly still, their tall frames hidden under a shimmering layer of light that bent the air around them. To the human eye, they were nothing but part of the rocks, but here, among themselves, they moved freely. One of the aliens adjusted the scanner strapped across its forearm. Blue lines of light traced the ground below, showing heat signatures of the humans moving through the ruins. Each glowing shape was a person, warm and alive, even in the cooling air of evening. "They do not leave their wounded," the tallest alien said, its voice a low vibration. "Even when it slows them, even when it puts them at risk." Another, alien, its armor scratched and dented from earlier fighting, tilted its head. "Perhaps they do not understand efficiency. Perhaps they waste their strength." The leader, standing at the center, did not agree. "No," it said slowly. "This is not waste. This is choice." Below, the humans worked with quiet determination. A soldier used his own hands to dig through debris, even though sharp metal cut his palms. A medic gave the last of her water to a stranger she didn't know. Small acts, but the aliens recorded every one. In the alien culture, the weak were left behind so the strong could survive. That was the way of logic. That was how wars were won. But these humans seemed to follow another rule, one the Watchers did not understand. The youngest alien in the group shifted uncomfortably. "Our commanders told us these creatures were dangerous, primitive, driven only by anger. And yet, the leader replied, I see no anger here. Only endurance. Only defiance. A sudden burst of static from one alien's comm device broke the moment. A message flashed in their private language. Enemy movement detected. North quadrant. 12 kilometers. The leader's eyes narrowed. This meant the other enemy, the one that had attacked earlier, was not finished. The battlefield was still a hunting ground, but their orders were clear. Observe the humans. Do not engage. One alien scout crouched low, aiming a long lens. Recorder toward the human commander. Harris was speaking quietly to an engineer, pointing toward the horizon. His movements were calm but sharp, like someone already expecting trouble. The scout zoomed in further, its lens picking up every detail, the lines of exhaustion on Harris's face, the mud on his uniform, the set of his jaw. Leader. The scout said, This one is dangerous. He sees patterns. He is preparing for the next strike. The leader glanced at the commander for only a moment before looking away. Then we will watch him closest of all. Behind them, the clicking sound from earlier echoed faintly again, carried on the wind. It was still far away, but it was getting closer. The youngest alien glanced toward the noise. If they stay here much longer, they will be slaughtered. Then, perhaps, the leader said quietly, we will see if they can survive twice. The group fell silent once more, the shimmer of their cloaks hiding them from sight. Below, the humans kept working, unaware of the glowing eyes fixed on them from the shadows above. The night air grew colder, but the humans did not stop. Their hands were blistered, their faces pale, yet they kept moving through the wreckage as if the weight of exhaustion did not matter. On the ridge, the alien watchers stood in complete stillness, their glowing eyes following every movement below. They had seen countless species at war, had watched armies crumble after a single defeat. But this was different. One alien focused its recorder on a scene unfolding near the broken command post. A soldier, young, barely more than a boy, was trying to lift a slab of concrete off a trapped comrade. The slab was far too heavy for one person. His muscles shook, his teeth clenched, but he refused to stop. Another soldier saw him struggling and ran over without hesitation. Together they lifted the slab enough for a third to pull the injured man free. None of them spoke a word about the danger. None of them asked for thanks. They simply moved on to the next person in need. The youngest alien tilted its head. They protect each other without command. This is not logical. The leader's voice was quiet, almost thoughtful. Logic does not explain everything. Not far away, two medics worked side by side, patching wounds in the dim light of a flickering lamp. One of them handed the last roll of clean bandage to the other. She did not keep it for herself, even though her own arm was bleeding. The aliens had no words for this kind of behavior. In their own armies, resources were given only to those most likely to survive. But here, the humans gave to whoever needed it, even if it meant they might die themselves. The youngest watcher finally asked the question that had been building in his mind. Why? Why fight so hard when they are already broken? The leader did not answer immediately. It watched as Commander Harris knelt beside an older sergeant, resting a hand on the man's shoulder. The sergeant looked close to collapse, yet when Harris spoke, the man straightened his back and stood again. They fight, the leader said at last, because they cannot imagine doing anything else. Below, a soldier laughed softly at something. Another had said, a small, tired laugh, but it carried through the cold air like a spark. The aliens noticed it. Even here, surrounded by smoke and ruin, humans still found space for something other than fear. The wind shifted, bringing with it the faint, steady clicking sound again. The leader's gaze turned toward the dark horizon. The sound was closer now, too close to ignore. But instead of retreating, the humans moved faster, working together to clear the field. They were not leaving anyone behind, not even now. The leader lowered its gaze to the camp once more. They are not what we were told, it murmured. The other aliens said nothing. They simply kept watching as the humans, battered, bloodied, and unbroken, continued to prove that survival was more than strength. The ridge was colder now. Thin streams of mist curled along the rocks, sliding around the tall shapes of the alien watchers. The battlefield below was still alive with human movement, small figures carrying, lifting, working in silence. One of the aliens shifted uneasily, its cloak flickering for a brief second before settling again. "Leader," it said, "we have recorded enough. The humans are stubborn, yes, but our orders were clear. We are to report and leave, nothing more." Another voice, deeper, sharper, cut in. "No, we have not seen enough. I want to know how long they can keep this up. When will they break?" The youngest alien stepped forward. "You all saw it. They are not like the reports. The commander said they were selfish, chaotic, only dangerous when in large numbers. But this," he gestured toward the camp below, where a wounded soldier was being carried by two others. "This is not selfishness." The alien with the damaged armor let out a low, mechanical hiss. "Do not let their behavior fool you. Kindness is not strength. Strategy wins wars, not compassion." The leader's glowing eyes stayed fixed on the humans. "And yet," it said slowly, "their compassion keeps them moving, even now, even with death close." Silence fell again, broken only by the faint hum of alien equipment. The clicking noise from the horizon echoed once more, closer than before. All 6 aliens heard it, but no one spoke of retreat. Finally, the alien with the damaged armor stepped closer to the leader. "What if they become a threat? What if our commanders decide to destroy them before they grow stronger?" The leader's gaze narrowed. "That is why we must understand them now. Strength is easy to measure, but this..." It gestured toward the humans. "This is something I have not seen before." The youngest alien took a cautious breath. "Then perhaps our commanders are wrong about them." The one with the sharp voice snapped back. "Careful. That is dangerous thinking." The leader said nothing more, but its hands tightened slightly on the edge of the ridge. Below, a group of soldiers formed a line, passing heavy rubble piece by piece to clear a path. They worked like parts of one machine, but without anyone giving orders. The leader watched closely, recording every second. "Dangerous thinking," it said at last, "is the only kind worth having." The clicking sound rolled across the field again, steady and certain. Something in the darkness was coming. And soon, all of them, human and alien alike, would be tested. The camp was quieter now, but only because the humans were running out of strength to keep talking. Their movements had slowed, yet no one stopped working. The sky above was a deep, bruised purple, the last traces of sunlight fading into the smoke. Near the far edge of the ruins, Medic Ruiz moved alone. Her boots crunched over broken glass and twisted steel. She had already pulled 4 survivors from the wreckage that day, but she wasn't ready to stop searching. Every time she thought she'd found the last living soul, a faint sound, a cough, a whisper, a cry, would call her deeper into the ruins. From the ridge, the aliens tracked her movements. The youngest watcher adjusted his scanner, focusing on the small human. "That one is reckless," he muttered. "She goes too far from her group. She will not survive alone." But the leader kept its eyes on her. "Watch her," it ordered, quietly. Ruiz ducked under a collapsed beam and shone her flashlight into the gap beneath. Dust floated in the air like snow. She was about to move on when something shifted in the darkness. A faint, uneven breath. "Hello?" she called softly. "Is anyone there?" There was no answer, only a small scraping sound. She crawled forward, pushing debris aside until her light fell on a face, pale, gaunt and covered in dust. The man was barely conscious, his uniform torn and burned. Ruiz reached for him. "It's okay. You're safe now." But the man's eyes opened wider at her words, and his hand shot out, gripping her wrist. His voice was hoarse, each word costing him effort. "They're still here." Ruiz frowned. "Who?" His breathing quickened. "Tall, not human, watching." Up on the ridge, the youngest alien shifted nervously, as if the injured man's words had somehow reached them. "Leader," he whispered. "He knows." The leader's gaze did not move. "No, he suspects. That is not the same." Ruiz gently pulled the man's arm over her shoulder, helping him crawl out of the space. Every step was slow, painful. She could feel him trembling. Once they were back in the open, she shouted for help. Two soldiers ran to assist, lifting the man between them. He kept looking over his shoulder, his eyes scanning the shadows like something might leap out at any moment. The leader on the ridge kept watching him. Something about the man's stare was different, as if he could sense the exact spot where the watchers stood, cloaked and silent. When the soldiers carried the survivor back toward camp, the aliens followed with their eyes until he vanished from view. "Do you believe him?" the youngest alien asked quietly. The leader did not answer right away. Instead, it looked back toward the dark horizon, where the clicking sound was louder now, no longer faint. "It does not matter what I believe," it said at last. "What matters is what comes next." The wind shifted, carrying the heavy smell of burnt metal across the camp. Fires still smoldered in small pockets of rubble, their orange glow flickering like weak stars in the darkness. Most soldiers were busy tending to the wounded or building a barrier of sandbags around the camp, but a small group near the center worked to gather anything that might be useful: weapons, tools, even scraps of armor. Corporal Mason knelt beside what had once been a communications station. His gloves brushed away ash, revealing a jagged piece of black metal buried in the dirt. It was smooth in some places, razor-sharp in others, and faintly warm to the touch, as if it still remembered the battle. He held it up to the others. "Anyone know what this is?" One soldier took it, turning it over. "Doesn't look human-made. Could be from the enemy ships." They tossed it onto a growing pile of salvaged debris: broken radios, melted plating, snapped power cells. None of them noticed the faint pulsing light inside the black shard, like the slow beat of a heart. High above, the alien watchers noticed immediately. The youngest alien's eyes widened. "Leader, that is ours." The leader's gaze locked onto the shard. "It should have been destroyed in the blast." "They will study it," another alien said sharply. "If they understand even a fraction of our technology." "They won't," the leader cut in, though its tone carried no certainty. Below, Mason and another soldier began sorting through the pile, setting aside anything that looked unusual. The black shard was placed carefully into a crate with a few other strange fragments. The lid closed with a dull thud. The alien with damaged armor took a step forward, its cloak rippling. "We must retrieve it now." The leader didn't move. Its glowing eyes stayed fixed on the crate. "Not yet. If we take it too soon, they will know they are being watched. But if we wait, they will still not understand it," the leader said firmly, though even it felt a small twist of doubt. A distant rumble rolled across the field, low and long, followed by that steady clicking sound. It was louder now, more defined, like the rhythm of countless feet moving in unison. The humans noticed it this time. Heads turned. Soldiers gripped their weapons a little tighter. Mason glanced toward the horizon. "What is that?" No one answered. On the ridge, the aliens stayed still, their attention divided between the approaching sound and the crate holding their lost technology. "Soon," the leader murmured. "We will take it soon." Below, the humans went back to work, unaware that in the pile of their salvaged scraps, they were guarding something worth more than their entire camp. The night pressed in heavier now. The smoke had thinned, but the air was still thick with the smell of burnt stone and blood. The humans had set up a few portable floodlights around the camp, their pale beams cutting across the ruins in long, thin lines. Every shadow seemed deeper in their glow. Sergeant Cole was on watch near the northern edge. He stood with his rifle across his chest, scanning the rocks and broken buildings beyond. The sound, that slow, steady clicking, had faded again, but it had left the hair on the back of his neck standing up. Something wasn't right. Cole's eyes moved across the ridge in the distance. For a moment there was nothing. Then, a flicker. Like the shimmer of heat over a road on a hot day, only it was night, and the air was cold. He raised his rifle, peering through the scope. The rocks looked still, silent, but that flicker had been real. He was sure of it. On the ridge, the youngest alien froze. "Leader, the human is looking straight at us." The leader didn't move. "Hold position. Do not reveal." Cole adjusted his aim, his finger tightening slightly on the trigger. He spoke softly into his comm. "Possible movement on the ridge, 1 o'clock. Might be enemy scouts." A voice crackled back. "Copy. Keep eyes on it. Don't fire unless..." "Confirmed." The shimmer shifted. Just an inch, but enough. Cole's breathing slowed. "I see it again," he whispered. Up on the ridge, the damaged armored alien leaned toward the leader. "He will not stop looking. We should withdraw." The leader's voice was calm but lower than before. "He sees nothing solid. Only doubt. Let him doubt." Cole stayed locked on the spot for another minute, scanning every rock and shadow. Finally, he lowered his rifle, though his eyes kept drifting back toward the ridge. Something about that place pulled at him, like it was holding a secret. In the camp, he crossed paths with Commander Harris. "Sir, I think we've got eyes on us," Cole said. Harris didn't look surprised. "We always have eyes on us," he replied quietly, before walking on. The aliens watched him go, their cloaks blending perfectly into the stone once more. But in the leader's mind, one thought was clear. The humans were starting to notice, and noticing was the first step toward seeing. The clicking sound had faded again, but the silence it left behind felt heavier than before. The floodlights hummed softly, their pale beams swinging in the night wind. Somewhere out in the dark, metal groaned, a long, low creak, like the earth itself was straining under the weight of the ruins. Near the center of camp, a group of soldiers worked to move a collapsed section of wall. The ground beneath them was cracked, but no one thought much of it. They were focused on clearing a path for the medics. Up on the ridge, the leader of the alien watchers noticed the fracture lines in the dirt. Its eyes narrowed. "That ground is unstable." The youngest alien tilted its head. "It will hold." "No," the leader said quietly. "It will not." Below, Sergeant Cole joined the work crew, lifting pieces of rubble and tossing them aside. Then the sound came, a deep, sharp crack from beneath their boots. Everyone froze. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the ground gave way. Earth split open with a roar, the entire section collapsing into darkness. Soldiers shouted as they fell, their floodlight crashing down with them, its beams spinning wildly before vanishing below. Dust exploded into the air, swallowing the camp. In a choking cloud, the aliens moved without thinking. 2 of them leapt from the ridge, their cloaks shimmering as they slid down toward the collapse. Others followed, ignoring the leader's sharp order to hold position. The youngest alien was the first to reach the edge, peering into the dark pit below. Humans lay scattered across a jagged floor of stone and twisted metal. Some were groaning, others silent. A beam of light from the fallen flood lamp cut across the cavern, showing the unstable walls and the dangerous piles of debris, ready to fall again. One human, pinned under a heavy slab, was directly beneath a leaning column of stone. Any movement could bring it down and crush him completely. Without a word, the youngest alien jumped into the pit. Its movements were fast, almost silent, its glowing eyes scanning the wreckage. The human looked up at the strange shape moving toward him, too dazed to understand what he was seeing. Up on the ridge, the leader's voice hissed through the alien comms. "Do not reveal yourself!" But it was too late. The youngest alien braced itself against the stone, using strength far beyond human limits to push the slab away. The trapped soldier gasped for air, scrambling backward, his wide eyes locked on the alien's tall frame, the shimmering cloak only half working now in the dust-filled air. The alien didn't speak, didn't explain. It simply turned and climbed the wall with impossible speed, vanishing into the shadows above. When the dust began to settle, the rescued soldier sat trembling, trying to make sense of what he had just seen. "There was someone else down here," he whispered to Cole, who had just been pulled out by his squad. Cole's face tightened. "I know." And high above, the leader of the Watchers finally admitted to itself what it had been denying since the start. The line between observing and interfering had just been crossed. The dust still hung in the air like a pale fog, turning the floodlights into hazy orbs. Soldiers moved in and out of the pit, pulling the injured to safety, coughing through their masks. The ground was still unstable, each step sending small rocks tumbling into the darkness below. At the far edge of the collapse, Medic Ruiz was helping. A soldier with a broken arm when she heard it. A sharp cry for help, deeper inside the cavern. She turned, spotting a faint glimmer of movement far beyond the safe zone. Without waiting for backup, Ruiz grabbed a rope and descended deeper, her boots crunching over loose stone. The air grew colder the farther she went. The beam of her flashlight cut across jagged walls until it landed on a figure pinned beneath a heavy section of steel. Only, it wasn't human. For a moment, Ruiz froze. The shape was tall, with long limbs and strange armor that shimmered faintly as if the air around it was bending. Its eyes glowed, not bright, but steady, focused on her. The alien didn't speak. It was breathing heavily, its leg trapped under the weight. A faint clicking sound escaped from somewhere in its armor, almost like a warning signal. Every instinct told Ruiz to back away, to call for help, to treat this as an enemy. But the look in its eyes wasn't hostile. It was the same look she'd seen on countless wounded soldiers, the quiet, desperate plea to not be left behind. She stepped forward. "Hold still," she said, though she doubted it understood. Ruiz crouched beside the beam and tried to lift it. It barely moved. Gritting her teeth, she wedged a broken piece of pipe under the steel and pushed with all her strength. The alien didn't move at first, as if unsure what she was doing. Then, as the beam shifted, it pulled itself free in a sudden motion. They both staggered back, breathing hard. For a long second, they simply stared at each other. Human and alien, dirt and smoke swirling between them. Then the alien straightened. Its glowing eyes locked on her face. Slowly, it reached toward its belt and pulled something out, a small, glowing shard of metal. Ruiz tensed, ready for an attack, but instead the alien placed the shard on the ground between them. It didn't say a word. It just took one step back, and then another, before turning and disappearing into the shadows of the cavern. Ruiz stood frozen, staring at the strange object it had left behind. Somewhere above, the leader of the alien Watchers received a brief coded signal from the one Ruiz had saved. No words, just a simple pulse of data. The leader understood immediately. The humans are not what we were told. The ridge was quiet again, but the air between the alien Watchers felt different. The youngest of them had not returned to its post. Instead, it sat slightly apart, its armor Scratched from the rescue, the shimmer of its cloak fading in and out as it ran a diagnostic. The leader approached without speaking at first. The glow in its eyes was steady, but its tone was lower than usual. You interfered. The younger alien didn't deny it. It was going to die, it said simply. That was the point of observation, the leader replied. To see what they do when left alone. The younger one looked up. I saw what they do. They risk themselves for each other, even for strangers. And now, it paused, remembering the human medic's face in the dim light. Now I know they will risk themselves for us too. The leader studied the younger alien in silence. Around them, the others shifted uneasily. They had been trained to see humans as dangerous, unpredictable, a species that would attack anything unfamiliar. But the story they had been told no longer matched the scenes they were recording. Finally, the leader turned to the others. Show me the last hour of footage. One alien tapped a device, projecting a faint blue light into the air. The images played, soldiers forming human chains to pull the injured from the pit, a commander giving his coat to a shivering private, medics working until their own hands shook. And then, the leader saw it. The moment in the cavern when the human medic leaned down, straining to free the trapped alien. The scene was silent, except for the sound of metal shifting and heavy breathing. The leader watched the human's face. No fear, no hesitation. Just determination. The recording ended. No one spoke. At last, the leader said, Our commanders have not seen this. The alien with the damaged armor hissed. We are not here to question orders. We are here to obey. And yet, the leader said slowly, orders given with wrong information lead to wrong actions. Silence again. Only the wind moved over the ridge. The younger alien broke it with a quiet question. What if the humans are not the enemy we thought they were? The leader didn't answer. Its gaze drifted to the human camp below, where floodlights cut through the night and weary soldiers still worked. The clicking sound from the horizon came again, louder and sharper. Whatever was making it was closing in fast. The leader's voice was calm, but its decision was not yet certain. If they survive what is coming, it said, we may have to reconsider everything. The wind carried the clicking sound across the ruins again, sharper now, like metal striking stone in a steady rhythm. Every few seconds it stopped, then started again, measured, deliberate. In the camp below, soldiers paused in their work, glancing toward the dark horizon. Up on the ridge, the alien watchers adjusted their scanners. A faint outline appeared on their displays. Dozens of heat signatures moving in perfect formation, spreading out like a net. The leader's eyes narrowed. That is not the humans, the damaged armored alien said. That is the other enemy. They are hunting, the leader replied. And they are close. Below, near a half-repaired comms tower, Commander Harris and Sergeant Cole stood over a map lit by a dim lantern. Their voices were low but carried just enough for the alien sensors to catch. They'll come from the north, Harris said. We've seen their pattern. They circle before moving in. We have maybe 2 hours before they hit us again. Cole's jaw tightened. We can't take another wave, sir. Not in this state. Harris nodded grimly. Then we don't let them hit us here. We'll move the wounded to the southern ridge, use the terrain to slow them down. On the ridge above, the youngest alien tilted its head. They are planning to move right into the path of the second group. The leader's gaze sharpened. They don't know. If they go that way, the youngest continued, they will be surrounded. The alien with the sharp voice stepped forward. It is not our problem. The younger one's reply was immediate. It becomes our problem if the enemy takes them. They will learn from their bodies, from their tech, from their ways. The leader was silent for a long moment, watching the humans below. Harris and Cole had already begun giving quiet orders, soldiers moving quickly to prepare for evacuation. They thought they were saving themselves, but they were walking into a trap. The leader's eyes flickered with indecision. Breaking orders was one thing. Warning another species, one deemed dangerous by their own commanders, was another entirely. Finally, the leader spoke, its voice low but firm. "We find a way to tell them, without being seen." The youngest alien's posture straightened, relief flashing briefly in its eyes. The others looked uneasy, but no one argued. Far away in the dark beyond the camp, the clicking sound grew faster, like a predator quickening its pace before the strike. The camp was in motion. Soldiers moved quietly but quickly, packing supplies, lifting the wounded onto stretchers, and loading what little equipment still worked. The floodlights had been dimmed to keep from drawing attention, leaving most of the ruins in deep shadow. On the ridge, the alien leader stood apart from the others, scanning the terrain between the camp and the southern ridge. The enemy shapes on the sensor were still advancing from the north, and now smaller readings showed movement from the west. The trap was nearly closed. "They will not see it until it is too late," the youngest alien said. The leader's gaze stayed fixed on the camp. "Then we will make them see," the damaged armored alien hissed. "Direct contact will reveal us. The commanders will know." "Let them know," the leader replied. "Better that than watching this species be destroyed out of ignorance." Without waiting for agreement, the leader began descending the rocky slope, its cloak flickering with each step. The youngest followed, adjusting its own shroud to bend, the light more tightly around its form. They moved quickly but silently, reaching the edge of the camp without triggering alarms. Inside, Commander Harris was bent over the map again when something flickered at the corner of his vision. He looked up sharply. A ripple of air shimmered just beyond the sandbag wall. He straightened. "Cole," he said quietly, "get your weapon." Before Cole could respond, the shimmer shifted, and a tall shape stepped into the floodlights. Edge. The cloak faded, revealing smooth alien armor, faintly glowing eyes, and long, deliberate movements. Every soldier within sight raised their weapon instantly. Harris's voice cut through the tension. "Hold your fire!" The alien leader stopped several meters away, its hands open, empty. Then, slowly, it reached to its belt and produced a small, glowing sphere. With a click, it activated the device. A three-dimensional map flickered into the air, a glowing outline of the terrain, the human camp at its center, and two bright red arcs closing in from the north and west. The soldiers stared. Cole's grip tightened on his rifle. "Sir, that's exactly where we're headed." The leader extended its hand toward Harris, pointing to a narrow gap on the map's southern edge, the only unblocked path. Harris looked at the alien, then at the projection. His voice was low but steady. "You're telling us where to go." The alien didn't speak. It simply closed the map, dropped the sphere into Harris's hand, and stepped back. Before anyone could move, the youngest alien appeared beside the leader, its cloak dropping for only a second before vanishing again. The two of them retreated into the darkness without another word. The camp was silent for a long moment. Then Harris closed his hand around the device and looked at his men. "We change course, now." Above, on the ridge, the other alien watchers watched their leader return. None of them spoke, but they all understood the same thing. The line between enemy and ally had just been crossed. The warning came just in time. Harris's orders cut through the camp like a spark through dry grass. Soldiers dropped what they couldn't carry, lifted the wounded, and began moving toward the narrow southern pass the alien had shown. The floodlights were switched off completely, leaving only the pale glow of the moon to guide them. But they didn't get far before the clicking started again. This time it wasn't distant. It was everywhere. The sound bounced off the broken walls and twisted metal, faster now, like the drumming of claws on stone. "Contact!" someone shouted from the rear. Shapes burst from the northern shadows, tall, insect-like creatures with spiked limbs and armor that glistened in the moonlight. Their movements were too fast for comfort, their claws digging into the dirt as they charged. Gunfire erupted, muzzle flashes lighting up the ruins. The first wave of creatures crashed into the soldiers' line, their screeches mixing with the sound of rifles and the shouts of men trying to hold formation. From the ridge to the west, another wave appeared, exactly as the alien map had shown. The trap had sprung early. Then, a sudden flash of blue light cut across the battlefield. An alien weapon discharged from somewhere in the shadows, the beam slicing through 3 of the creatures in a single shot. Confused, the soldiers hesitated for a moment before realizing. The aliens were firing at the same enemy. The alien leader stepped into the chaos, its cloak gone now, armor gleaming under the moon. It moved with lethal precision, each shot from its weapon dropping another attacker. Beside it, the youngest alien fought with blinding speed, using a long, curved blade that seemed to hum with energy. The humans began adjusting their fire, covering the aliens as they struck from the flanks. Harris shouted over the gunfire, "Keep the line tight! Don't let them surround us!" Cole took position beside the alien leader without thinking, the 2 of them working in rhythm, one firing high, the other striking low. A creature lunged at Cole, but before it could land a blow, the alien's blade flashed, cutting it down. The enemy was relentless, wave after wave crashing into the humans and aliens alike. The air was thick with dust, smoke, and the sharp scent of burned chitin. The ground trembled under the weight of the fight, debris falling from shattered walls as the combat raged. Then, from deep in the northern shadows, a roar echoed, deeper and heavier than the others. The smaller creatures pulled back, forming a wide arc. Something larger was coming. The alien leader's voice, calm but urgent, reached Harris. "That one! We must kill it together!" Through the dust, its shape emerged, a massive creature, twice the size of the others, armored in thick black plating. Its glowing eyes locked onto the retreating humans, and it charged. For the first time, human and alien didn't just fight, side by side. They moved as if they had trained together for years, each strike, each shot, each step in sync. The line between them had vanished. The ground shook as the massive creature charged, its claws gouging deep furrows in the dirt. Every step was like the slam of a hammer against the earth, shaking the ruins and rattling the rifles in the soldiers' hands. Its roar was so loud, it drowned out the smaller creatures and even the gunfire. Harris didn't need to give the order. Everyone opened fire. The air lit up with tracer rounds, the smell of gunpowder mixing with the acrid stench of the beast's burning armor. But the shots barely slowed it down. Bullets sparked off its black plates like rain hitting stone. The alien leader moved first, firing a concentrated beam into the beast's right shoulder. The shot burned through the armor, and the creature shrieked, jerking to the side. That gave Cole a clear angle, and he hurled a grenade into the wound. The explosion staggered it, but still, it came forward, rage boiling in every movement. "Fall back!" Harris shouted, but the narrow pass was too far. If the creature reached the wounded, it would tear through them in seconds. The youngest alien leapt from the rubble, its energy blade humming with a fierce blue glow. It struck at the beast's legs, carving deep, sparking wounds, but the massive, clawed tail whipped around and slammed into it, sending the alien crashing into a wall. "Cover them!" Harris yelled, and 3 soldiers laid down suppressive fire as the alien leader dashed to its fallen comrade's side. The younger alien staggered to its feet, armor cracked, but nodded, ready to keep fighting. The beast reared up on its hind limbs, towering over them all. In that instant, the leader's voice cut through the chaos. "Aim for the throat! That is the weakness!" Harris relayed the order instantly. Every soldier shifted aim, pouring fire into the narrow gap between the armored plates of its neck. The beast thrashed, smashing rubble aside, roaring so loud it shook the air. Then the alien leader leapt, higher than any human could, landing on the beast's back. It jammed a glowing explosive into the wound at the throat and kicked off. Just as the device detonated, the explosion ripped through the creature's neck in a burst of blue-white light. Its roar cut off in a choking gurgle as it collapsed, shaking the ground one last time before going still. For a moment, there was only silence, broken only by the distant clicking of the smaller creatures retreating into the dark. The humans lowered, their weapons slowly. The aliens stood still, scanning the battlefield. Dust and smoke drifted through the air like a slow fog. Harris stepped toward the alien leader, his voice rough but steady. "We wouldn't have made it without you." The leader met his gaze for a long moment before answering. "Neither would we." Somewhere far off, the enemy regrouped. But for tonight, the humans and aliens had stood together and survived. Dawn crept over the battlefield, painting the ruins in pale gold. The fires from the night's fight still smoldered, sending thin black smoke into the quiet morning air. The wounded had been moved to the sheltered edge of the pass, where medics, human and alien alike, worked in silence. For the first time since the battle began, there was no sound of clicking in the distance. The enemy had truly pulled back, at least for now. Commander Harris stood on a cracked section of wall, scanning the horizon. His uniform was torn, his face streaked with dirt, but his eyes were clear. Beside him, the alien leader watched the same horizon, its armor dented, its cloak long gone. "We were told you were only here to observe," Harris said after a long silence. The alien leader turned its head slightly. "We were told you were only here to destroy." Harris gave a tired half-smile. "Looks like both of us got bad information." Down in the camp, Cole was helping two soldiers carry ammunition. The youngest alien worked beside them, moving heavy crates with ease. They didn't speak the same language, but a nod and a glance seemed enough to keep the work flowing. The alien leader looked back at Harris. "Our commanders will not approve of what happened here." "Neither will mine," Harris replied. But approval doesn't change the truth. They stood in silence for a while longer. The rising sun lit the distant hills, and the shadows of the night's battle slowly faded. Finally, the alien leader extended a hand, a gesture alien to its own people, but one it had seen humans use. Harris hesitated for only a second before, clasping it firmly. "This doesn't make us friends," the leader said. "It makes us aware." Harris nodded. "Aware is a good start." Without another word, the alien leader called to its team. The cloaks shimmered back into place, and within moments they were gone, only faint footprints in the dust marking where they had stood. Harris watched the empty ridge for a moment, then turned back to his men. They had work to do, and the war wasn't over. But somewhere out there, in the same war-torn world, another group was watching, not as enemies anymore, but as something far more dangerous to the old order, as survivors.